Today's video, we're going to talk about Google Ads location targeting out of area users. You're running Google Ads is showing your ads to people outside of the area basically that you want your ads to be shown. So if you have a plumbing company, you're targeting Dallas and you're getting people to show up, see your ad in Houston, this is the video that's going to be able to help you fix that once and for all. And there are several things that you actually have to do to be able to do this for your business. And it isn't the typical that you're going to hear from Google itself or other channels, because I have learned over a decade now, and with all the Google changes that's going on and seeing this happen dozens of times, what it actually really takes in order to be able to do this for your business. And I can tell you for a fact that if you do not do any of these things, 30-40% of your traffic could very, very well be coming from out of area, which obviously will probably take out any chance of profitability on your campaign if you do not fix it. Okay, but the upside to this is A, it's easy to do. You can do all this, no problem. Don't need to be an expert. It can happen fairly quickly. B, as I talk about all the time on this channel, your competitors are going to be stuck with all the outside the area clicks, meaning they're going to be willing to pay less for a click. You're willing to pay more, and you're going to have a massive edge on your competition. So I love these things that Google's doing to make us pay more for ads and buy traffic that we don't want, because I find the way to get rid of it again. It's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. Oh, Google's going to change this to get us to buy shit we don't want. Bam, knock it down. Everybody else has to deal with that now. I got it out of the way. I'm going to now have a much higher return on ad spend. I'm going to be willing to take up more of the ad space because it's profitable to me and it ain't for them, at least on the same level. Here it comes up again. Wham! And you just got to be able to figure that stuff out. Now, this channel, frankly, has them all, because as soon as something like that comes up, I got to figure it out, diagnose it, and figure out how to get around it. And then I share it on this channel. So with that said, I'm going to cover what these individual things are here. And then I'll give you a couple case studies as to different companies that had a massive issue and with different ways they were dealing with outside the area clicks that was tanking their results and making their campaigns unviable. I'll explain how that works, how it worked with them, so you don't have the same issues yourself. If you do not know who I am yet, I am Corey Zyman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, a online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we get them a certain minimum lift in the profitability up front, basically in excess of our management fees. Going into what I was going to talk about here today. So this right here is the method to block out people so that people outside your positive targeting. There's positive targeting, by the way, in Google Ads if you're not aware of it yet, and there's negative targeting. How to get to where your ad only shows up in the positive targeting area, or 95% plus, because location targeting is never an exact science, because location targeting is typically based upon the user's IP address, and an IP address can sometimes, there's databases out there that will reverse engineer a IP address to location, and those databases are wrong sometimes. And so once in a while, you're going to get people outside the area, even if you do all these things, but nothing's better than getting it down to 2-3%. And it ain't obviously going to stop you from making money in that situation versus the 30-40% situation that I mentioned earlier that I've actually seen with other clients. So with that said, the more of these you do, the more you're going to cut it down, and more obviously will cut it down more than others. The typical stuff that I hear people talking about up front are these first two by itself, particularly the first one. But if you just do the first one, you're not going to have nowhere near what you want to have. And if you're currently paying for 35% of your traffic is coming outside the area, this might get you down to 20 or 15%. And then the second one might get you down to like 10% or 5-10%. These last ones are going to take you from your 10% down to a couple of percentage points, which is what you want to do as well. With that said, what are these things? So the first thing to mention here on the list is your advanced location targeting setting on your campaign. If you go into the settings menu inside your Google Ads campaigns, there's under locations, it'll have under the advanced location setting, which there's a drop down there, it'll ask you if you want your location setting to be set up with presence or interest. Presence being that the person needs to be physically located in your positive targeting list in order for the ad to trigger, versus if somebody's searching for something inside outside your area, your ad can still technically show in addition to people that are actually physically located inside that area. An example of that would be somebody searching for a Boston plumber when they're in New York City. So Google has a good reason actually to do this, because there's some clients that we have that had a client who's a videographer, for example, and they targeted, they're in NYC, but a lot of the people who need a videographer are outside NYC and they actually do filming in NYC. So in that situation, they don't want to block out people looking for a New York City videographer itself, video production company, because they'd be blocking a good half of the market. Now they don't want people that are outside in New York City that are searching for a video production company. They only want people that are outside the city who are searching for a company inside the city. That's the situation where you want to have presence or interest, knowing that there's going to be some people who are searching for, as I mentioned in this particular client's case, that are looking for an NYC video production company that are just looking for information, doing research and so forth. But the downside was just too great, or the upside of having the people out of the area that have big budgets that are looking for a company inside the city to do a shoot outweighed the negative of people outside the city that are just looking for information, if that makes sense. So you go ahead and make that settings change on all your campaigns if you haven't done it already. That'll take care of a good half of your problem, probably, if you don't have it set up that way yet. Or at least we'll say a third. Then you got negative locations. Now this is actually, I'd say a majority of the cases where we do these things for clients, where a majority of the effect is going to actually come from this being more than this, technically. And that is having your negative locations on your campaigns. That is if you do it to the insane level that we're doing it at our firm. So as I mentioned before, there's positive and then negative locations in your account. Positive being where you ideally want to have your ad show up, and then negative locations are where you don't want to show up, which is an oxymoron and just confuses the hell out of people. And it's done deliberately to screw people and getting them to buy clicks outside the area, obviously. Because why the hell, what is the purpose of a negative location? You have your area that you want your ad to show, and that's it. After I tell you where I want my ad to show, you now have an area that I don't want to show. It makes no sense whatsoever. With that said, in the situation where you have presence or interest, like with the videography company that I mentioned, you could actually have it in that particular situation where you want people outside NYC that are still in New York State that are looking for a videographer. If you wanted to exclude a certain pocket of New York State from being able to search for NYC production company, then in that unique situation, it actually could be warranted where you would then have a negative location and why you would want to use it. But for the most part, in my mind, in my opinion, Google's had negative locations there so that they can push outside the area clicks on people, because, you know, all the actions in the big city, once you get outside the big city, nobody wants those people. And same thing in other countries that, like, you know, developing countries and stuff, nobody wants those clicks. They can still sell those clicks to people, their current advertisers. And then if they complain about, am I getting calls from, you know, Calcutta, India? And they can be like, oh, we could take care of that. Just use negative locations and you're good. Just add a negative location for Calcutta and you're good, which will take care of the calls from Calcutta, but then you'll start getting them from, you know, Manila, Philippines. You're getting them from all over the place still. And so with that, to probably see where I'm going with this, the real situation is, given that Google's doing it on purpose, is you got to add every area that you don't want clicks as a negative location. You got it. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with all the countries, every 100, all 190 countries you're going to have to, that you're not operating in, you need to add them as a negative location. Then you don't stop there. Then you add all the states, assuming you're a US resident and advertising in the US here, and it would be the same in other countries, provinces, whatever. You add all the states that you're not in as a negative location. Why? Because you can't add the whole country of the US as a negative location, or otherwise, assuming you want US residents clicking on your ads, you'd block out what you need to block out, or what you want to have your ad ultimately show up for. So you have to add all the states. Then you have to go ahead and you add all the counties, because if you're targeting just people in a local business, you can't add the entire state as a negative. Now you have to add the counties that don't apply to your little local market that you're covering. Then if you want to get technical about it, you want to do it completely right, you got to go ahead and add all the cities that you're not operating in as negative locations, then the zip/neighborhood that you're not operating in. If you want to completely fence off your area that you want your ad to actually show up in, and everything else won't trigger your ad geographically. So, I mean, idealistically, the reality is you're not going to get it done with just that by itself, which is why we have 3 and 4 on the list here. That's what you got to do. And that takes a load of time, and you may not want to go ahead and do all this. It takes a lot of time just to add all the countries to all your campaigns. The trick is you use Google Ads Editor, download that program, Livestream, which allows you to edit your campaigns quickly. And you could take, at least once you've added it to one country or one campaign, the 190 negative country list, you can copy and paste that to all your campaigns quickly and then click publish and you're done. Same thing with the states. If you add all 49 states you're not in, copy paste, boom, you're done. Versus having to add it manually, because there's no way to quickly copy it and paste it to the others. Obviously it's going to be on purpose as well. But so anyway, and then for the most part, you're going to get, just with the countries and states, you're going to get 90% of the value out of it. But if you want all of it, or let's say 80%, if you want all the value, you have to add the other counties. That's going to get you from 80 to 95% of the value. And then if you have the cities and zips, it's going to get you 99 to 100% of the value out of this particular technique or strategy. So depending on how anal you are about getting the best results, very anal, you're going to go ahead and do them all, or at least countries, states, and county. You're going to go ahead and damn well do that, because you do not want to be paying, even if it's $100 a month that you're losing from outside the area clicks per month, you're going to pay that for the next 10 years. So basically you're going to throw away 10 grand because you do not want to go ahead and add these negative countries to your account. Makes no sense whatsoever. So go ahead and do it. And if you can't do it, make a video, have an assistant help you do it, or you can reach out to us at our agency and we'll give you the list to copy paste into your account. That could be another way to go about doing it. But either way, just know Google's going to load you up with outside the area clicks if you do not do this, particularly for localized businesses, because there's a lot of people searching for local companies, and I don't know what it is, but Google and local businesses, they just load you up like high hell with outside the area people if you do not go ahead and do these things. Okay, for e-commerce companies, usually you target the whole US if you're doing that and you're a US company. For the most part, you're not going to get ad clicks outside the country, and for the most part, that's going to be because when somebody searches to buy a new hammer and they're in France, they're going to get French search results. They're not going to click on US-based sites. They're going to click on French sites. So you don't have to worry about it. If you're talking about local business, it's a massive problem, especially in niches that are very niche businesses. Because when people have trouble finding a vendor, what they'll do is they'll search for people that are, a long ways away just to be able to find somebody, even if it's just to ask questions. No, not only in that situation as well. The other type of business where it's a major issue, more than other businesses, way more, is in niches that are very common, going the other way with this. Plumbers itself. Why? Because there's so many people searching for a particular plumber that they've dealt with in the past, and that will trigger your ads very easily on Google unless you add a ton of negative keywords. Your ad's going to show up for that person, and then they're not going to, half the people don't read the ad before they click on it. They're going to see your ad, they're going to think it's because they typed in Jeff's Plumbing, your ad shows up, and it doesn't say Jeff's Plumbing, but they're going to assume it is Jeff's Plumbing because they're lazy, they don't like to read anything, and they think Google knows what they're thinking. They're going to click on that ad call, waste your salesperson's time, and then, which is the other half of it, by the way. You're not just wasting your ad spend, you're wasting your salespeople's time. But in a niche like that where there's hundreds of companies in a local market doing what you do, like a plumber, you're going to have tons of those people searching and checking their order status with various competitors, many of which are outside the area, and because Google is just going to stuff the search results with whatever they can for the people typing in those competitor names. It's just another thing that I've noticed. So with that said, what do you do to take care of this? Once you've done these two things that I just mentioned here, you're going to go ahead and add negative keywords to your campaigns to help finish blocking this out. So you go from 10% down to a couple percentage points or even a percentage point on being an out area. And mostly that having to do with, like I mentioned before, IP-based geography reversal tracking, knowing where someone is physically. They make, mistakes are made just because Google doesn't understand where that person actually is. And what I mean by negative keywords here, there's two things that you want to do. The first of which is the location-based searches. So you go through your search terms report, assuming you're talking about search campaigns here. You can't do this with PMAX, which is why you shouldn't use it, by the way. You can't do it, at least if you're talking about lead generation campaigns, you shouldn't use PMAX. And you can't do it with display campaigns and so other campaign types. But search campaigns, go into the search terms report, or you can do it with shopping, I guess I should say. You go in there and you find any searches that are location-based, you add them as a negative keyword to all your campaign. Now, you could go a bit further here, and if you were really pissed off at Google giving you these out-of-the-area clicks, you could actually take all your keywords, like we've done before, and add all the cities that surround your city, or all the cities in your state, or all the counties names in your state, and use a permutation generator, which you can find online, which you could put all your locations in one field, all your keywords in another field, and then it'll just append the city names or county names to your keywords to bring in, to act as a list of negative keywords you can add to your campaign. So if you're targeting plumbing services, plumbing companies, and you want to block out, Johnsonville plumbing services, and then you take that and you add it to your account, and then proactively you're blocking any location-based search that's a city or state or country outside your area. For the most part, this is only feasible on a localized basis, but if you were starting to get a lot of, let's say, searches from one particular city that's a sister city to your city, and you're tired of it, that would be an easy way to get it cleaned up in specific. For me, 90% of the time, we're just going to go through the search terms report, find any location-based search that doesn't match our area. We're going to add that as a negative keyword. If it's not good enough for you, you can go further and just do the permutation thing that I mentioned and go ahead and add all the extra variations in there that aren't in your search terms report yet, but you want to block out proactively, preventatively, and you can go ahead and do things that way. You also can do competitor negative keywords. So this is something that definitely I've not heard anybody else talk about. But like I was mentioning before with the plumbers, there's in any bigger market, bigger metro area, there's hundreds of plumbers. There's a guy in a truck and he's a plumber, and a guy with one employee, he's a plumber, and therefore there's hundreds of companies in the local market. So because of that, there's a lot of people, and it's a type of thing that you call, you get the plumber to come out, they got to go get parts. So somebody's got a lot of times they're getting calls from their customer asking, did you get the part? Are you coming back? Can I get my bill? I want to pay my bill, whatever. So there's tons of this inquiry-based traffic on Google. With that said, okay, like I said, Google loves having your ad show up for people typing in these competitor names. And the only, especially, or should I say, they don't give a shit if that competitor's inside your area or not. They don't. And for some reason, competitors that are outside your area, they like to have your ad show up for those people. I think it's because Google cannot sell the competitor traffic to very many people because people know it doesn't convert, because most of the people, like I said before, that search for a competitor click on your ad mistakenly and nobody wants it. So they stuff search results with an ad space with people to monetize those searches, and that's just what they do. So in order to prevent your ad from showing up for competitor searches, particularly competitors who are just not even in your local market on top of everything else, you go ahead and add as many negative competitor terms you see in your search terms report as you can as negative keywords. Or like I was mentioning before, you could be proactive, find every freaking plumber on Google Maps that are, in the surrounding areas that you are in, and add them proactively as negative keyword. And it's gotten bad recently to the point where you can look at your search terms report and 20, 30, 40, 50% of the searches in a market like pest control, plumbing services, AC services, like that it's just going to be competitor search, because Google needs to be able to sell that, or wants to sell that ad space to just anyone they can and monetize it. So in order for your campaign to even be profitable, you got to add every single one of those negative keywords in there for those competitors, or your ads will never make money, so to say. So as it ties to outside the area clicks, a lot of these competitors, again, like I said, are outside the area. Why Google? It's one thing have you show up for competitor name when you're trying to actually only show up for like plumbing services and whatnot. They have you show up for the competitor name anyway. But on top of it, it's competitors outside your area. The only way you're going to get rid of all the outside the area people is to add the competitors as negative keywords. See what I'm saying here? There's getting to be more and more gotchas with Google ads all the time. As soon as they, people figure out a way to block a particular thing that wastes clicks, they come out with another. And this is going to just continue. The only way to fight it is just to be able to learn from somebody who spends their full-time job figuring it out on an ongoing basis. So as soon as it comes up, they've got 50 accounts to look at so they can see where the issues come up, and then as financial incentive to figure out how to get around it, you have to learn from them. This is exactly what I do for clients that are firm, and for that, you should subscribe to this channel if you want that information. Not only that, but I tell you exactly what works on Google as well as Facebook and other online ad platforms in which we use to guarantee results for our clients, that you could just use it for yourself. Most of the information you find online and on YouTube about how to run ads successfully is given to you by people who don't run any ads at all, or they're not successful at running ads. And then therefore the information's bogus. They'll spend all their time trying to sell a course, make money on AdSense and all this. They don't actually run any damn ads, or if they do, they aren't good at it. Trust me on. So if you're going to pay attention to anything, you should subscribe to this channel. Furthermore, I've got a great blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog. Blog itself has the strategies that we're using to guarantee results for our clients with the screenshots, with the step-by-step. Should definitely check that out as well if you haven't already yet. And with that, by the way, if you have any questions about anything I'm covering here today for you, or any other ad-related question for that matter, you can always leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, usually within 24 hours time. So the final thing on this list that I needed to mention here, what we're going to do to get rid of as much of the outside the area clicks as possible, is to add city/location based ads. Okay. With that said, so that at least if you're your ad shows up for an outside the area person, they're going to know right away that you're not in the area. Now, like I said before, only half the people read the ad before they click on it. So in order to be profitable on Google Ads, your ad has to show up for people, practically speaking, that you want to click on the ad. You can't expect that the ad's going to filter them out, which some people, it's funny as hell, but they'll, put an ad out there saying like, unless you have $15 million, don't click on my ad. Like that's actually, if that's all it took to get something to work, why isn't everybody? But with that said, half the people do look at the ad. So it does help still to put on the ad your location every time. So at least when they see your ad, half of the people are going to weed themselves out. And for that matter, Google is going to see that they're weeding themselves out, or enough people are weeding themselves out, that the algorithm can adjust for that and not have your ad show up for people like that from that area in the future. If that makes sense. Even though like they're doing, like I mentioned, they're doing this out of the area stuff on purpose, and they are, at the same time, there's another part of their algorithm that's trying to get people what they want at the end of the day. And for that matter, you may say, well, I'm not a local business, so how can I do that? Even if you're not a local business, this will help. Yeah, if you're doing e-commerce, yeah, it doesn't really make any sense for you guys necessarily, unless you're selling locally as well. But for national or regional or local service companies, you should be doing it in all of you guys' cases. For national companies, almost every single campaign I run now, I set up one campaign for every state that we're targeting so that the ad actually says the name of the state for the user. So if they're searching for keynote speakers, my ad will say keynote speaker Nebraska for a person that's in Nebraska. Why? Because it increases click-through rate a whole shit ton. That's the main reason why we do it. But it's also going to get a person who's not in Nebraska, or not in Nebraska in that case, I should say, to not click on that ad itself. And let's say they're from Canada where we can't go. They're from Canada and they see that ad and it says Nebraska on it. They're going to be a hell of a lot less likely to click on it for the half of the people that actually read the ad, like I mentioned before. So that's the other thing. You could do this. So with that, you can do this on a state level or on a city level. So you could put the state name on the ad, like I was just mentioning with the national companies, or you could put the city name on the ad when you're talking about one city-based business, or a business that just covers one city itself. And that'll help weed out the outside the area clicks somewhat as well. Silver bullet, but when you combine that with the negative keywords, like I mentioned to you, with the negative locations, with the having the correct advanced location option set up on your campaigns, it's going to mean all the difference in your results. If you want somebody to do all this work for you, which is pretty time consuming to do all this is exactly what I do for clients at our firm on a regular basis. Reach out to me at guaranteeppc.com. I'll let you know how much results we can get for you with it, using it, executing it for you, and then what you stand to gain as a result of that. We also been selling ad templates. If we've already done all the work to get you the results you're looking for in your niche market, we can just sell you the winning ads, landing pages, campaign templates, all the negative, locations and all this crap that I talked about is plugged into your campaign already as well. We could tell you the results we got in it. So if you're a plumber, for instance, like I talked about in this video, we can tell you what our lead costs and our ROI on the plumbing campaigns we're running now. And as long as you're in a city that our client's not in, you could use it there and have turnkey result. We've got 100 different niche markets plus 100 plus niche markets that we've got results in at this point in time, because we've been operating over a decade now running this agency. And so chances are high we've got the results in the market you're interested in. I can tell you what those results are up front. With that said, getting into the case studies now to wrap this up, we had a company who was buying people that want to sell their house quickly for cash, one of those cash for home type businesses. We had a company that was in the Tennessee area, basically, and we were running our campaigns in his area of that Tennessee. This was quite a while ago. Normally nowadays, I'm going to be quicker to do all the stuff on this list versus waiting until there's an issue with the lead quality coming in by listening to the calls and so forth, or just listening to what the client has to say. But we did not have the negative locations or very many negative keywords, and we had this in place. But with that said, for this company, they were getting calls from one state over, literally for about almost half of all the calls that they were getting. The reason for that is, like I mentioned before, if you're in a niche market where there's not that much volume and you tell Google you're willing to spend a lot, what they're going to try to do is get people outside the area to see your ad so they can spend your budget, which is why you have to be really careful about how quickly you increase your budget nowadays with Google, because if you raise it too quickly, even if Google says, hey, you're spending 100 a day now, you can spend 270 a day. If you do that big of a jump at once, more than likely you're going to start getting junk traffic, either from the wrong searches themselves or from outside the area, like here. It's much better in that case, even though it's tempting to do, even if you're getting the cost per lead you want already, instead of going from 100 to 270 a day, you go from 100 to 140 a day, and then watch the results. And then if it's checking out, then 100 180 a day and then walk it up at least one step at a time. And it'll give time for the algorithm also to catch up and learn, get feedback from what it's doing that it wasn't doing before is working versus, what do I do? Let's give them all this. But it was very interesting to me why Google would send that much outside the area traffic. We also, I talked heavily about plumbers here in this video. We had a plumber itself. And one thing we noticed with the plumber itself, as we got closer to the holidays and it was harder to spend our budget, Google would load us up with competitor traffic. And not just competitors itself that were like just surrounding the area, but people that are in a whole nother state, all over the country. It's getting insane what Google's doing with their system nowadays. And the only way to truly fix this was to go ahead and add the negative locations down to the city and county level, like I mentioned, and adding thousands of negative keywords truly fix it. So, we're talking more than half of our searches were competitor searches. Whereas before, earlier in the year, during the regular times, if you will, it was less than 15%. May not even be hitting you now, but it can sneak up on. Anyways, just some food for thought. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense. Hopefully this helps you do what you need to do with your campaigns, or at least prevents issues, like I mentioned, happening in the future. So with that said, I'll wrap it up with that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Remember when I said location targeting was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.